Welcome to UBG Bytes. Today, we're zeroing in on something that, well, it impacts pretty much everyone who learns or works these days. What really goes on in your head when you use tools like ChatGPT for, say, writing an essay?
Yeah,
Is it making us smarter, faster? Or there's maybe a hidden cost we're not quite grasping yet?
exactly. We're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly quite thought-provoking new study from MIT Media Lab. It's got this title, Your Brain on ChatGPT, Accumulation of Cognitive Debt when Using an AI Assistant for Essay Writing Task.
By Natalia Kosmina and her colleagues.
Right, and it gives us this unique look into the cognitive cost, or maybe it's more of a cognitive shift that comes with relying on AI. So here's how we're going to approach this. Imagine you've got two scholars looking at the exact same data from the study.
Right.
One, let's call her Dr. Efficiency, sees this and thinks, wow, AI is amazing. It boosts productivity. It's a whole new way for our brains to work, maybe even better.
By the optimization argument.
Sure.
But then you've got Dr. Depth. He looks at the same results and throws up a huge red flag, warning about this thing called cognitive debt, the potential long-term downside, maybe eroding critical skills.
So a potential trade-off.
Precisely. So today, we're going to explore the evidence each of them would pull from this study to make their case.
Sounds like a great plan. And to really get that, we should probably quickly run through how they set the study up, because the design is pretty clever.
Yeah, lay it out for us.
Okay, so they started with 54 participants. Over 3 sessions, these folks were divided into 3 groups. You had one group using an LLM, like ChatGPT.
Got it.
Another group used a standard search engine. Google, Bing, whatever.
The old way. Well, one of the old ways.
Oh, right. And the third group was brain only. No digital help, just their own thoughts, writing essays on SAT prompts for 20 minutes each time.
Okay, pretty standard comparison so far.
But here's the twist. In the 4th session, they took 18 participants and switched things up. Some who'd only used the LLM before. They suddenly had to go brain only.
Ah, so the LLM to brain group.
Exactly. And conversely, some of the brain-only folks, they got access to ChatGPT for the first time, the brain-to-LLM group.
Okay, that is clever. See what happens when you take the tool away or give it to someone fresh.
Precisely. And they measured a lot of stuff. EEG for brain activity, seeing which parts of the brain are lighting up and how connected they are.
Like listening in on the brain's electrical chatter.
Kind of, yeah. They also did deep analysis on the essays themselves using NLP, natural language processing, looking at structure, vocabulary, complexity, that sort of thing.
So checking the actual output quality.
And critically, they interviewed everyone afterwards, getting the subjective experience. You have the brain data, the essay data, and the user's own feelings about it. Really comprehensive.
All right, solid foundation. So let's dive into Dr. Efficiency's side first. What evidence makes her say, see, AI isn't just a crutch, it's a cognitive advantage?
Well, the first thing Dr. Efficiency would jump on is, efficiency and quality, plain and simple. The paper itself notes LLMs are great for quick explanations, breaking through writer's block, helping brainstorm.
That initial blank page problem.
Exactly. It lowers that initial cognitive load. And the study mentions ChatGPT-4 actually outperformed human students on things like language mastery, logic, vocabulary, even sentence structure complexity.
So the AI can produce objectively high-quality text, maybe even better than the average student in some ways.
That's what the data suggests, yeah. And Dr. Efficiency would say, look, that frees up your brain for higher-level thinking, maybe editing or strategy.
Okay, what else?
User satisfaction. This is a big one. Across the first 3 sessions, 17 out of the 18 LLM users said they were fully satisfied with the essays they produced.
Well, almost unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting good results you're happy with quickly, that feels like a win, right? From an efficiency standpoint, it's hard to argue with user happiness.
True. Okay, but what about that session 4 twist? The brain to LLM group, the ones who started without AI and then got it. Did their brains just switch off? Or did something else happen?
This is where it gets really interesting for Dr. Efficiency's argument, that brain to LLM group. In session 4, when they used AI after having written without it, their brains showed higher neural connectivity across all the main brainwave bands, alpha, beta, theta, delta, compared to the folks who'd been using LLMs all along.
Wait, higher connectivity, not lower.
Higher. The study suggests that basically rewriting or refining an essay with AI after you've already done the initial legwork yourself engages more brain networks.
So it's like the brain is actively wrestling with the AI's suggestions,
Yeah.
integrating them maybe, not just passively accepting.
That's a very plausible interpretation, yeah. It points towards heightened executive function planning. Like you're using the AI as a tool to push your own thinking further, but only because you had that initial thought process yourself.
Okay, so it's potentially a different kind of thinking, not necessarily less thinking.
Exactly. And that connects to another point Dr. Efficiency could make. Even for the regular LLM users, while maybe their overall brain network engagement seemed a bit lower, the study floats the idea that the nature of their executive tasks shifted.
How so?
Less about the heavy lifting of generating the raw text and more about supervising the AI's output, critiquing it, guiding it, editing it.
So you're still thinking, just
Yeah.
differently. More like an editor than an author from scratch.
Potentially, yeah. It's a reallocation of mental resources, not necessarily just turning your brain off. Dr. Efficiency would frame this as a sophisticated cognitive partnership.
Okay, that's a compelling case for AI as a collaborative partner, maybe even enhancing certain aspects of cognition or output. But now, let's bring in Dr. Depth. He sees the same study and sounds the alarm. What's his primary evidence for this idea of cognitive debt?
Right. So Dr. Depp's biggest piece of evidence, and it's frankly pretty startling, is the LLM group's problem with memory and quoting.
Ah, yes. Tell us about that.
Get this. In the very first session, out of 18 participants who used the LLM, 0 could correctly quote a sentence from the essay they had just produced with the AI's help. 0.
0. That's remarkable.
And 83% of them flat out said they found it difficult to quote anything at all. It wasn't just a blip either. This problem stuck around. Even in session 4, when the LLM users were forced to write without AI.
The LLM to brain group.
Right. 7 out of 9 of them still couldn't correctly recall and quote from their own earlier work.
Wow. So the deficit lingered even after they stopped using the tool for that session. What's the proposed reason for that?
The study links it directly to reduced connectivity in specific brain frequencies, theta and alpha bands especially. These are crucial for memory consolidation, for actually encoding information and storing it properly.
So if the AI is doing the work of structuring the thoughts and phrasing them, your brain isn't getting the work it needs to actually learn or remember the material.
That seems to be the implication. You're outsourcing the cognitive effort required for deep encoding. It just doesn't stick.
Okay, that's a major red flag for Dr. Depth. What else?
Another big one is this feeling of fragmented and conflicted sense of authorship. LM users often said they only felt partially responsible for the essay.
Like, did I really write this?
Exactly. A diminished sense of cognitive agency, as the paper puts it. If you don't feel ownership over the work, it suggests a weaker connection to the ideas, less personal investment.
That makes sense. And what about the essays themselves? Did they seem different?
Very much so, especially to human evaluators. The teachers reading these essays often describe the LLM-generated ones as, well, soulless.
Soulless, ouch.
Yeah. They noted standard ideas, lots of reoccurring typical formulations, a lack of personal nuances. Basically, they felt generic.
And did the computer analysis back that up?
It did. The NLP analysis showed LLM essays were statistically more similar to each other, more homogeneous. They reused generic phrases like the phrase perfect society popped up way more often in AI-assisted essays.
So a tendency towards blandness, maybe? Less originality?
And specific biases, too, like focusing more on third-person perspectives and career stuff. It suggests the AI nudges writing towards certain conventional, perhaps less creative paths.
Okay, so memory problems, fragmented ownership, homogeneity.
Yeah.
What about critical thinking itself?
Dr. Depth would point squarely at the study's warning that LLM usage may diminish critical thinking, decrease engagement in deep analytical processes, and contribute to cognitive atrophy.
Strong words.
They observed less engagement in certain brain networks, the alpha and beta ones, after using AI. The thinking is if you skip developing your own strategies for, say, organizing an argument because the AI just gives you a structure.
Then those parts of your brain don't get exercised.
Right. Those circuits might not strengthen. It could push you towards what they call a convergent thinking style, just finding the right answer or refining the AI suggestion, rather than divergent thinking, which is about exploring lots of possibilities.
Which leads us back to this cognitive debt idea. How does Dr. Depth define that based on the paper?
The paper defines it as what happens when repeated reliance on external systems, like LLMs, replaces the effortful cognitive processes required for independent thinking. You're essentially deferring the mental effort now.
But you pay for it later.
Exactly. With potential long-term costs like weakened critical thinking, maybe being more easily swayed or manipulated, and potentially less creativity, it's borrowing against your future cognitive self.
Yikes. Okay, so two really strong opposing interpretations drawn from the same data. It's definitely not black and white.
Hmm.
What about the middle ground? You mentioned the search engine group. Where did they fit in all this?
Yeah, the search engine users were kind of interestingly positioned between the other two groups. Their brain activity showed this intermediate level of engagement. It looked like a mix of managing visual information, reading search results, and exercising regulatory control, deciding what to use and how.
So more active selection than the LLM group,
Yeah.
but more external input than the brain-only group.
Pretty much. And behaviorally, they did well. They could quote their essays almost perfectly after the first session, and they were pretty satisfied.
But did they feel full ownership?
Still some split perceived ownership, interestingly. Not as much as the LLM group, but more than the brain-only folks. And they weren't immune to biases either.
How so?
Filter bubbles, basically. The study noted that when writing about philanthropy, the search engine users disproportionately focused on homelessness, likely because that's a really common keyword association in search results.
Ah, so the tool is still shaping their thinking, just maybe more subtly than the LLM generating whole paragraphs.
Exactly. Even search isn't neutral. It guides attention.
And what about the judges? You mentioned human teachers versus an AI judge evaluating the essays. What did that reveal?
That was fascinating. Human teachers were way more skeptical about uniqueness. They could often spot the LLM-generated essays by their sort of standard structure and lack of personal voice. They could even recognize individual human writing styles.
They picked up on the nuances.
Right, the AI judge. It consistently scored essays higher on things like uniqueness and quality.
Seriously. Higher uniqueness for the often generic-sounding LLM essays.
Yep. Which really highlights maybe a difference in values, right? Humans value originality, voice, maybe even imperfections that signal authenticity. The AI judge might be prioritizing technical perfection, complexity based on its metrics, things like that.
That says a lot about how we define good writing. And there was one other cost mentioned, wasn't there? Something non-cognitive.
Oh, yeah, the energy cost. Kind of a side note in the paper, but a pretty impactful one. An LLM query, like asking ChatGPT something, apparently uses about 10 times more energy than a standard web search.
10 times. Wow.
Yeah, roughly zero point 0.3 watt-hours versus zero point 0.03. So this isn't just about our brains. There's a real environmental and potentially economic cost to this large-scale AI usage that we probably don't think about much.
Okay, so putting this all together, this study really gives us a complex, kind of messy picture. It's definitely not saying dump the AI, but it is urging us to think critically about how these tools are changing us.
Absolutely. The big takeaway seems to be that, certain brain processes just need active exercise. If we consistently let AI handle the planning, the structuring, the heavy lifting of idea generation,
Our own mental muscles for those tasks might atrophy.
that's the concern. And this cognitive debt isn't just abstract. They saw it in the reduced brain engagement when the AI-dependent folks had to go it alone later. They were literally measurably less equipped for the task without the tool.
Which leaves us, the users, the learners, in a tricky spot.
It really pushes a crucial question onto all of us. How do you find that balance? How do you leverage the incredible power and, yes, the efficiency of these AI tools without outsourcing the fundamental work of thinking, analyzing, and creating yourself?
How do we use AI to genuinely enhance our learning and capabilities without inadvertently weakening the very cognitive foundations we rely on?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we partner with AI without losing ourselves in the process? Something for all of us to really chew on.